Hey guys, this is Dave from Valor Fire Training again, and in this episode of Q&A, we have Captain Chad Dailey from Rescue 9 of Kansas City, Missouri Fire Department. Chad, thanks for joining us.
You bet.
So Chad and I have met several times and taught around some of the same conferences, and we've always, had a fun time debating things and talking about some different tactics and kind of our views on things. So I asked Chad to jump in for this one because we had a technical rescue question. And then also there's some new innovative stuff that Chad and some of his crew members have come up with that I've been getting a lot of questions about. People have asked me if I know you guys and kind of the backstory on this thing. And it's something that I've been using for a couple of years. So we'll talk about that too after the question. So this question comes in from Louisiana, and this guy asked, we don't routinely use rope rescue equipment. It's not something that we've ever really done. We don't have a dedicated rescue company, but we do carry rope rescue equipment on our apparatus. There have been several times where we've needed to use low angle rescue techniques, and my suggestion was to have a pre-rigged Z-rig in the bag ready to go. My crew doesn't believe that this would be beneficial and they want to have options. What are your thoughts? And I dabble a little bit in rope rescue stuff. I don't like being on the rope, but that's just me personally. And so, knowing what I know, which is very limited, that's kind of why I reached out to Chad. So what are your thoughts on this? I mean, this is kind of a common question that I've heard multiple times.
It's kind of hard because I think with that particular exact question, that person, it sounds like they haven't received formal training with rope rescue. So, but in true fireman form, they're doing the best with what they got. So, as for pre-done stuff, most of what I've been taught and the guys, and I'm going to speak from the knowledge of those around me. There's people with a lot more rope knowledge than me out there for sure. But I do my best to soak it all in. But for the most part, for one, you could even boil it down to leaving a knot in a rope. You're not supposed to leave a knot in the rope because that puts a bend in the rope over time that weakens the rope. But then again, we're in the job of saving lives, and that means time is always usually a factor in what we're doing. So, but as for like leaving prusicks tied, supposedly those are supposed to be not tied together also. We leave those tied. We take the knots out of our ropes now. We don't have anything pre-done. When it comes to a Z-rig, honestly, myself, I never even considered having a pre-done Z-rig in a bag. It should be so second nature, whether you've had a class or not. If you're going to use it, you need to make sure it's done right. And, it needs to be backed up and anchored properly and all this stuff, whether it's high angle or low angle. You have the potential to get someone hurt if not done right. So I really think that a Z-rig is so simplistic to set up that it doesn't need to be tied in a bag. But to add to that, and I won't say my experience, our experience on Kansas City, and I think I speak for most of us, at least on my company, but also in our rescue division, that we have found that the Z-rig that oftentimes not quite be enough. And we found it that typically a Z-rig may not be the first thing you're using. The first thing, even a low angle, you may just want a safety rope that guys can slide their hand down as they're walking down this hill so that if they do fall, they don't roll. So the Z-rig, a lot of times, is not the first thing being put into play. So get the rope down there. So we found our best option is a piggyback 4-to-1. You could say that complicates it, but it really doesn't. At the end of the day, it makes it easier because you have a freestanding rope that you can do what you want, in or out, up or down, belay it, whatever you want to do. And when you want to haul, you have somebody else over here put that 4-to-1 together. That is something that I wouldn't be opposed to having already put together, and we've done in a bag, to where you just pull it out of the bag, hook it to the anchor, stretch it out, hook it onto your grab it onto your rope with whatever type of grab you use, and you're ready to haul. If you want to go back down again, you just unhook it and and you're ready to lower again. So we've really made that our go-to instead of the Z rig like a lot of the fire service. We've gone to the piggyback 4-to-1, and I think once people try it and use it, at least for us, we decided that it was more simplistic. It gave you a better mechanical advantage. It required less people, and that's our go-to. That's what we like doing. I think a perfect example of this is not trying stuff in real life situations. So you can do it training tower, you can do it on the hill at the back of the station, but you got to go down to that creek bed or out in the woods or remote places and put this stuff to work in real life, just like everything else we do in the fire service. We had a house the other day. My go-to move for a fireman through a hole, fireman out a window, like a Denver type drill type incident, was a 2-to-1. And I grabbed a fireman that was fully geared up, over 300 pounds, and we had a previous fire, went back to the house, put him through the hole, and me and another big guy, Paul Viren, went to get him out, and we almost tapped out before we could get him out. And I was using this pre-rigged 2-to-1 in our RIT basket over the top of a ladder. We took a ladder up on the front porch, right by the bay window where the hole was, by the front door, because that's what almost happened at the fires. We had a couple guys almost go through the floor. Yeah. And we shoved the ladder up there, go over the top of it, shove it in the hole, hook it to the fireman, drag him to the hole, try to take him out, and it almost didn't happen. We found out that 2-to-1, the way we were using it, did not work. So we totally went back to the drawing table on that, and now it's a 4-to-1. I wanted a 2-to-1 because I thought I got to keep it simple. This is a RIT type situation, but when RIT is activated, all the simple things have already been done. Typically, if I'm stepping up or the RIT is stepping up to the plate. So, and this is just as simple as the 2-to-1. What we figured out and how we're doing it now works well. So all this stuff, you gotta get out and train on to be proficient at it. And so I think that's my 2 cents. I've never had a pre-done Z rig in a bag, just because it should be so simplistic to put together and not really require much time to do.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple things that you said that just I wanted to hit on and discuss just a little bit. I have, with the limited amount of rope stuff that I do, we have never really thought about having pre-rigged stuff, because the way that I was taught, not unlike you, if you're going to have stuff pre-set up, that's something that has to be worked every single day or every single shift or every single week. Or it's no different than having hose in a cross lay. If you leave it there for 5 years and it never moves, you're going to have bends that don't come out. And the same thing with the rope. If you're constantly using that rope and exercising it and getting out there and training with it every day, which is great, that's different than that bag just sitting on that rig for 3 years until that one time that you need it. And those Prusiks haven't moved for, several years. Right. And so, with us and especially the way that we do it at Edwardsville, and I called you when we were getting our stuff kind of set up, and we had some discussion back and forth. We have kits made up ready to go with the appliances and the hardware that we need for the things that we need. So if I want to do a 2-to-1, I know I grab this carabiner because it has everything that I need to do a 2-to-1. If I want to make a 4-to-1, all I have to do is add this. And so we kind of segmented it that way, so that the hardware is together and the ropes are separate. And then we decide kind of how we want to piece that together. And I know some departments have done cue cards for the people that are less proficient, or even on like a tarp, you have the actual drawing of the way that the rope system is set up. So there's so many options out there. I don't necessarily think that having a pre-rigged thing is bad for a rope rescue team that does it all the time, or stuff like that.
Yeah, it's I don't think well, I remember our department, I was a little dumbfounded that they came out with a laminated sheet on how to do a size up and establish command to go in front of the captain's seat, in the captain's seat on the rig. I'm like, I threw it away. I'm like, if you need a card to tell you how to build a Z rig or 4-to-1, and you're on a call, you probably shouldn't be building the 4-to-1 at this point. That's something that happens during training. And I mean, I realize we all have brain farts, but that could be a serious situation to rig something wrong. Um, and that's why there's usually redundancy in it. We may not need the card, but after I build something, whether it's an anchor or a haul system or something, I turn around and I grab Dave Mellon and say, hey, go check my stuff. And if you're done with what you're doing, I actually physically touch every carabiner, pulley, prusik, and knot. It takes seconds, but that's almost always gets done. I would say do it always, but
It has to be done. Yeah.
I'm never an always kind of guy either, though, because I mean, a perfect situation. We had a car running, unconscious person in it on a hillside, in gear, slipping down the hill with the person and his cowboy boot is shoved up in the axle, and he's underneath it and it's running over him. There wasn't time. We caught an anchor. We couldn't reach it with the rig. So anyway, we caught an anchor, hit it with a rope, pulled it back, tensioned it, and then had the smallest guy dive in the window and put the car in park. But there wasn't time. So I try to never say never and always, but because there's situations that obviously we got to do what we got to do sometimes. But for the most part, we typically try to always do that.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, you bring up a great point, and you can't always say always. But I know from my experience, at least, not liking being on the rope, I still do it, and as part of the crew, especially when I'm a company officer, I feel like I have to be on the rope because I can't ask the crew to do stuff that I wouldn't do myself. You know what I mean? So even though I don't like doing it, and I wouldn't be the first one to volunteer, but I can tell you, like in that situation with the car sliding down the hill, if I had 3 crew members standing there and I've got a lot of experience double checking and making sure that they've done everything right, which they should, there may be one person that I'm like, nah, why don't you stand over there? You go tie that rope, and it's one of those things where if I know that person is spot on every single time, that's the person in that situation that I'd be like, Paul, go tie that. Right. Versus Dave, who, every once in a while he forgets to put in a knot.
Yep. I'll never, it wasn't that long ago. I underestimated my own guys, and I'd asked them to set up a system. We were actually, you always want to look good. You want to do well. It wasn't life critical. We're getting a dead body out of a creek. But, we got a lot of people here, press is here, the police are here, and a lot of other fire department personnel. It's like, so, you want to look good doing what you do, doing what we do. And I asked a couple of people, hey, set this up, do this, be ready. I turned around about 5 minutes later, and I didn't understand what was going on. When it came to their anchors, their haul, everything, it made no sense. I jumped right in the middle of it and straightened it out, fixed it all. After it was over, I went to them and said, what were you doing? And they explained everything that they were setting up, and I completely messed up their plan. They had a perfect plan. What they were going to do was going to be just fine. It just didn't match with what I had preconceived in my mind. And I needed to put trust in them and stay out of the way because I didn't let them finish. Instead, I caused it to take longer by jumping in. So that was a good lesson learned for me there.
Yeah, for sure.
And coming with all the rope and technical rescue stuff that, you got to let one competent person make a plan and stick to it. And even if you don't, until you get to the point that if you thought it was something dangerous, then somebody's got to step up. Everybody's a safety officer, but until that point, you got to let people do their thing.
Yeah. Well, and for those of you watching, if you are not following KCFD Rescue 9 on Facebook, they're constantly putting out some awesome stuff as far as technical rescue. Just the stuff that I've learned just looking, and I'm super jealous. I mean, I'll be the first one to say it. And I think prior to COVID, I was like, bro, I need to come ride with you guys. And you were like, bro, come on down. Like we'll go cut some houses up, but you guys are constantly hanging off of bridges or going down and working off of creek beds or doing high angle stuff off of buildings downtown. And I love the fact that you guys are doing it, not just in the Bay, but you guys are out there doing it. And you touched on that briefly earlier. But rope rescue is one of those things where there is a little bit of setup, but it's not like doing live fire training. It's not like doing RIT stuff in an abandoned building. The rope stuff and the technical rescue, you can do that almost anywhere, And so it's so cool to see you guys going and putting up a tripod and doing rappelling off of something or rappelling off the anchors on your rig it's, you guys are always doing that stuff, and I love it.
We something that crossed my mind when it comes to getting out in the environment and doing it. Some skills that we learned with rope rescue, monopod, bipod, tripods, all that kind of stuff. In structural collapse, we learned how to do a gantry. We ran a call the other day, and I really would like to set this up somehow and do it, because it just would have been so challenging. But we're the last rescue in, so I was trying to come up with a plan B or a plan C, you know, because they're hiking about a mile back in the woods to get a horse out of a creek. So we got a veterinarian on the way in case we need to sedate the horse. And I'm just sitting back in the parking lot, gathering equipment, and we're gonna have to haul it all in. But my idea was to do a gantry on the creek bank with the longest struts, you know, 610s with extensions or something I could get, hang it out over the creek, strap the horse, put a haul system on it, and just drag him a couple feet at a time. You'd have to pick it into the ground. It would have used a lot of skill sets.
Yeah.
And so I imagine sometime next summer, we'll probably be doing that with a rock in the middle of a creek somewhere.
Yeah, don't go asking people for horses to try it on. But yeah, it's you know, and that's, you know, not only KCMO, but you know, here over on the Kansas side, we've had 2 or 3 horse rescues in the surrounding areas. It's, you know, pretty common. And I think, you know, for the viewers that are watching this from across the country, there's places where in more urban areas, they're like, horse rescues, what the,
Yeah,
we don't do that.
I'm pretty sure. I think in our state, MU fire rescue training, I think somebody through MU teaches an animal. I've never had it, but I've looked at videos and whatnot, and there's some valuable information there, and probably knowledge that, you know, if that's the kind of call you run, that we need to have. Well, actually, I have moved a horse once. I forgot. We had a runaway horse on the plaza. It's unfortunate. He just took off with people in it.
Oh,
And
in the carriage.
yes, and the turn where the horse took actually was the worst place in the entire plaza he could have took it, because he flipped him off the bridge down to the creek. Yeah, yeah, I think we sent a couple people to the hospital, but then the horse is laying there, and the cops got their AR drawn on him, because if the horse gets up and runs again, they didn't want anyone to get hurt.
Yeah.
And then the horse owner is grabbing the AR and putting it to his head, like, "You're not going to shoot my horse." I'm like, "Dude, I wouldn't grab that cop's gun again if I were you."
Yeah,
But
that's not a no.
no, it was not a good idea. But he had a lot of passion to save that horse. But we ended up helping move that horse and drag him up into a trailer with a haul system and hooking him appropriately. And I mean, there's do's and don'ts, you know. Just like
Yeah.
hooking a person, you can't go around their chest or not allow them to you know, take air in. So
Yeah. Well, and you know, you bring up a super, I don't want to say it's kind of a unique point, but I mean it really is, depending on whether you have a human and they're alert and oriented and you can reason with them. You know, animals are a completely different story. You know,
yeah,
you can't reason with a horse. You can't reason with you know, people that are half conscious. And I've there have been so many times where we've done low angle stuff. We've done way more low angle than we have high angle.
yeah.
But you know,
We
we've
had
had, yeah, and so, you know, for me, in my experience, you got that drunk person off the side of the road at 2:30 in the morning off the interstate or the highway, and you're trying to reason with them while you're putting them in a Stokes, and they just don't want to have anything to do with it. And so I can't even imagine how much harder that is with a horse.
right. Yeah.
But so getting back to that one question, and I wanted to kind of wrap this up for the rope part of it. You know, I know here most of everybody that does rope or is proficient with rope, they go through the Chapter 5 rescue essentials or introduction first, and then they'll go through some sort of rope rescue training. But for years, it was just taught in-house where I was at, and it was something that we trained on and we did all the time. We talked about it. But I didn't have any formal rope training, even though I knew how to tie ropes and do Z rigs and 4-to-1s and different haul systems and capture systems. What do you feel like is an appropriate level of education versus training?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think I've ever heard anyone ask before, but I guess in my world, because it didn't have to be asked, because we felt like we got a proper level of training. I think before a department or a company decides to put somebody on a rope, high angle, you know, you have to have some type of decent certified class. In the state of Missouri, you know, one of our leading instructing agencies is Missouri Fire Rescue Training, and now the Division of Fire Safety, who certifies all our different fire department certifications, has stepped up and has a certified course that's administered through MU still, I believe. And we have several instructors, including myself, on our job that are capable of teaching it. And I would say it would be something that shouldn't even be used without some type of credible source. And the perfect example is that on my crew, everyone has been through that. And even with that being said, I can think of one near miss, hadn't had ropes out for a while. And I always say train from the highest heights you can get. And this was the perfect example, and why Paul Barron is still alive. His first time over an edge. We had some rusty guys, and I'm not even sure what went wrong. But anyway, Paul went 3 or 4. He free fell about 3 floors before the Prusik Mining Belay finally caught him, and he was on a rack with all the bars. Anyway, two major failures before he caught. Was it a failure because they caught him on the 3rd floor? Yeah. What if we were going out 3rd floor of the drill tower doing this training?
Yeah. You're out of room.
Yeah, it wouldn't have worked. And so we've had a couple instances like that, and it's like, and that's with people with training. We've also had some good saves, people working belays and doing things right when we do ladder bailouts and whatnot, that I've been super impressed with. Head first down, they flip off the ladder, and the person on the belay is on it and stops him right before it would have broke. Head went between the rungs, would have broke his neck, would have killed this person, and caught him on a belay. So absolutely, I think before you put someone in the air, you've got to have a credible class.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, for my experience prior to getting all the certifications and all that stuff, for us, low angle was never really a big deal, and we treated it like it wasn't really that big of a deal. It is, and there's some things that you can screw up. But when you start talking about going vertical or even hauling up, a steep incline, there's some bad stuff that can happen. And so, for us, it was, if there's a car off a 20-degree grade, we can go down there and put them in a Stokes and haul them up. And we didn't feel like that was as big of a deal as putting off somebody off the side of a building.
Right. And there's unpredictable things that can happen. If you haven't had a class, you may not realize that your victim's hair is going to get stuck in your rack, and now you don't know how to reverse it. Or a young fireman trying to help, when you go over the edge, puts their hand on the rope to help guide the rope down the edge roller, and now their hand's pinned between the edge roller and the rope, and you're hanging on it. And you just have to know how to unscrew things up.
Yeah, and I love the quote, and I've always said this during almost every single class: you don't know what you don't know until you don't know it. And for me, until I took the certifying classes, I was like, oh my God, we really didn't know some of this stuff. Like, this was stuff that I never knew.
And I taught rope rescue with my brother, Matt Black, and out with Missouri Task Force 1 for several years. And we started brainstorming on some things and realized one of the stations to get certified was to catch a falling load. And the way we were taught is you sit there on some type of belay system. I'm going to push Rescue Randy over the edge. You're going to catch him. Okay, here we go. Boom. It's expected. It's anticipated. Yeah. So what as Matthew's idea was like, hey, from now on, when they're doing their raising and lowering, hauling and lowering station, when they lower down, we're gonna put a slip knot in, some kind of releasing knot, and when they're hauling up, they can't see what they're doing. They're on top of the drill tower working. So when they're hauling, we're gonna run down to the 3rd floor, pull that knot loose, and let the Rescue Randy or whatever go onto the belay. That way you completely catch them off guard, and you would be amazed how many near misses or failures we had, because they were caught the way you would be in real life, unexpected, not instead of sitting there watching it and then doing what you're told to do. Yeah. So yeah, that was eye-opening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think every state at some point has, certifying agency. Ours is KU, Fire and Rescue Training Institute. Ben Green took it over for the technical rescue stuff a couple years ago. And they have a mobile rope tower now that they can drive around with the semi. And so they've done a lot of really cool stuff. There's just no excuse not to have that training if that's what you want to do. If you're not doing rope stuff.
I tell you, I think for the fire service, it's huge that, with all these cell towers and stuff now, and that's a whole, in most training courses, that's a whole nother aspect or a different class.
Yeah.
Can't remember his name, give him credit for it, but it works for Olathe Fire. We've gone out there and taken their tower rescue class, and it's a fantastic class that gives you a lot more options than what I was able to put together in my own head. The scenarios I ran in my head on how to mitigate something like that, their ideas were far better and more proficient.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, okay, so moving on to this thing that you guys came up with. So, a couple years ago, you guys were at a conference that I was teaching at as well, and we got to talking about. I'm pretty sure we were drinking and eating pizza. Pretty sure there had to have been.
Probably drinking, I know for sure.
Yeah, there had to be drinks there involved somehow. But anyway, we were talking about making grabs and performing rescues, and the fact that getting a good grip, doing things, like I'm not a big fan of pulling webbing out of my pocket. I don't think that it's feasible. It works great in training, but I've never had it actually work in the real world. And we've talked about realism, and so all of my rescue mannequins, all the classes that we teach, the first thing I do is cut the webbing off the rescue Randy, because it's just not realistic. You have to get underneath the arms, you have to grab arms and legs. There's certain things that you run into. And so you guys kind of came up with the design to help distribute some of that load and make rescuing either one victim or multiple victims a lot easier. So why don't you talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, it's been an evolving thing over the years, and really what has made what made it happen for us is pulling people out of fires. And it goes back several years that Brad Hall, he's moved on to another department. He was a firefighter of mine, and we made several grabs, and we felt pretty good about them. But then you go back and you sit at the firehouse and you're like, we're paid professional firemen. Yeah, we did good. We went in, we did a great search, we found these people, and then we got them out. But then you reflect on getting them out. It's like, is it really appropriate that we dragged and dropped this person 5 times through the house to get them out? Like, we did our job. It was extremely exhausting. I don't know, we didn't know of a better way to do it. So we're like, yeah, it's okay, it's acceptable. But the more we did it, the more we're like, there's got to be a better way. And so as we start training on it, we realized that the weakest link or the hardest thing, typically, even once we figured out how we wanted to carry patients, we figured out the hardest thing was to keep a good handhold, to get a good grip. So we tried multiple things, like a larger glove on the left hand so your hand would fit in it. That helped well, although it made for a bulky left hand, when you're trying to use an axe or something. But that was the evolution of it. And like I said, it was a lot of ideas and a lot of people putting ideas into it over several years, and a lot of failures, not really failures, but
ideas that maybe didn't work out the way that you wanted them to.
Absolutely. And rescues that could have been, we're always critiquing ourselves. It's like, that could have been better. It could have been better. The webbing, I got the pre-done. Mine's a 20-foot loop of webbing with carabiner in it, so it can be a 10-foot loop or a 20-foot long piece or whatever. But I've seen that pulled out. I can randomly think of at least 3 times that got pulled out at fires, house fires, and it wasn't a good option. It didn't work. It failed. I think the only place where that would come in handy in my repertoire would be a large commercial with a big long drag, down the Kmart aisle or through an industrial setting or something. Other than that, probably not going to use it. The one time I did use webbing, we had a fallen firefighter. He went through a basement. He didn't make it out alive, but we were able to use webbing on him. And what that did, because it was so combined, so stacked, full of stuff in this basement, that it enabled us to put in a small area to put 4 full-grown men's hands basically on this firefighter and pull. Because of the length of webbing, I had 2 people behind me pulling and 2 people up here pulling on the same point. So that was the only applicable space I found it to be applicable in a residential. But so what we came up with the webbing in an effort to figure out how to hook my wrist together and be safe about it. I first came up with the idea, I'm thinking how can I handcuff knot my wrist together, and that's how we came up with the idea of webbing. And after we started hooking our wrists together, thinking this is kind of not a good idea, and not be so permanent. How can I have something hanging from our coat? So we ended up with the webbing running through our coat, around our back, and onto our shoulder, and to where you can just, if it's a solid loop running all the way through, when you pull it out, there's a hole, and you can shove your hand through it, and it just naturally tightens your hands together. All you got to do is pull your hands together and pull your hand out if you need it out.
Yeah.
It works great. But we've also changed what we were taught on getting victims out. We've one of the victims over 300 pounds. We only need one person to do that dragging. It doesn't help. It's never been beneficial that we've seen to get more than one person's hands on them. Now, it may take two people to position that person. One person finds them. I mean, I get everyone in the mindset, whoever's with me that day on the rig, it's like, when we find a person, what are we going to do? It's like, one person's going to stay back. The person that found them is going to flip them around, head towards the way we want to go out. Which way are you going out? Is it the way you came in, or is it going to be, is there a window closer? So don't get in the mindset that you got to leave the way you came, but head first towards the way you got out, towards the way you want to go out, and then foot in the crotch usually, or knee in the crotch, set them up, extend them out, call your partner in. Your partner does not go to his knees. They're flexible enough and strong enough they can squat down with their butt almost on the floor, get behind them. And this is where you can't rush it. You got to take your time, make sure you get the best grip you can get, whatever type of grip you decide to get. Usually for us, it was like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best grip. But even with wet hands, sometimes you may have flesh, coming off people and stuff. It's difficult. We tried grabbing their wrists. We tried multiple things, and that was the best that we could find. And honestly, that wasn't getting us all the way to the front door usually. And so, but you got to get a good grip, or if you're using our rope thing, we reach around, we pull that knot out, shove our hand in. We've got to use it a couple times now. It's great. The last time I used it, let's see, Paul again was me and Paul were together. Found the guy, did exactly what we said, spun him around, picked him up. I had the strap, so I ended up getting behind him, pulled that out, hooked in. Paul goes behind me. He's no longer needed except to get me out. He grabs my bottle and leads me out. That's where the partner's needed. I had several people on the fire ground, because of what they're taught, kept coming along trying to grab his feet. I'm like, don't grab his feet.
You're like, leave him the hell alone.
All you're going to do is knock me over, throw me off balance. We had a narrow set of stairs with a hand line running up it, and I was tripping and falling all the way down, but Paul just wedged me up and kept me from falling. My helmet fell off halfway through. My hands were so free that I was able to grab my helmet with the victim in my chest, put my helmet back on while Paul's still leading me backwards down the stairs. That's how well it worked. And then I got to the front porch and everyone wanted to take him off my hands. It's like, no, you can't take him right now. We're locked in. Just bring me the cot, and all the way to the cot. And that was the easiest rescue. As for pulling someone out, recovering someone from fire, that's the easiest I've ever done, is with that strap. I could have went and done it again. Most times after pulling someone out,
you're gassed.
Sometimes I doubt if I could do it again. We're going back in to finish that search if we need to, but you're pretty gassed, and it definitely, I'll never go in a fire without having that again.
Yeah, and it's something that after you guys showed it to me and I actually put it into my gear, I have it both at my career department and on the volunteer side. It's been a huge game changer for everything that we've done as far as search training. I've only gotten to use it once in real life, and for me, just like what you said, it was easier. It was, my hands were free, so if I needed to do something to adjust the victim, I wasn't trying to bear all the weight. It was literally me trying to keep them steady, but all the weight was being held on my forearms. I did grab pictures off the internet. So let me pull these up real quick. And I want to kind of go through them step by step so that you can kind of explain what's in these pictures. So let's go with this one first. So kind of talk about this one and what we're seeing.
Yeah. So you're looking at the one with the black webbing, right?
Yep.
So so what you need is a loop of webbing. We evolved from webbing to we got some extra DRD straps, which you'll also see. But what you see in the picture that you're pointing at there is the loop goes around his right shoulder and then comes around to a single strap, and he's got it looped around. Oh, he put his arm through it on that one. Your arm doesn't have to go through it on the left side. You could, after you loop the left shoulder, you can literally pull it back into the two pieces in the single one and run it down your arm and put your outer shell on, and it will stay right there. And the knot will be in your left hand. For a right-handed person, that's the way we preferred it, is the knot is hanging out of the sleeve on your left side. I don't feel like it being where it's at. I don't feel like it creates any kind of exposure, or anything like that between the shell or anything. But it stays right there. What we have found is that sometimes this piece of webbing will have to be tied at the exact length depending on the size of the firefighter.
Right.
So each guy's got to make his own. And what we had found is we were making them just right, and a lot of times that knot was slipping up into the coat and we're losing it. So what a few guys have done is you can make it longer, but sometimes it was getting too long to where the victim would drag down and be way down below your waist by the time it stretched out. So some guys have added like a monkey's fist out of paracord, hooked to that, to where the little ball, the monkey's fist, hangs out of their coat, and they pull that and it brings that knot out. And once you pull that knot out, you just shove your opposing hand through it, and you can reach around and grab it, like you'll see in Ryan's picture with the yellow DRD.
Yep. Let me pull that up.
Go back to that one. We'll come back to that one. Where's the other one of Ryan? There's
Here's this one.
There. Yeah, right there. So he pulled it out of his left hand, shoved his hand through it, and then, for an extra measure, you can just turn your hand over and grab that strap and grab the strap itself. Even without grabbing it, it's never come off our hands, but it does take up slack and made it feel like it made it more comfortable to turn that hand over and grab it.
And I love the fact that it distributes the weight across your shoulder, and you're not, there have been times where I'll kind of lift my back and kind of start moving backwards, and it's just, you can feel it tighten up, and the more it gets tight, the closer the victim gets to you.
Yeah, and that was, we weren't even considering that. Our main problem that we were trying to overcome was a lack of grip, being able to maintain a grip all the way to the front door. And so that's what we're doing. And doing so, by hooking over the shoulder like that, we realized we just took the weight of the victim from our hands and our arms and put it on our shoulders and centered it over our body. So it was a game changer on twofold: the grip and how you're carrying. And like you said, once you get that person and you actually get up on your legs straightened out, up on your feet, and you lean back a little bit, and you get the weight centered, it's go time. And that's why I say you don't need anyone else to grab them. One person, just embrace the suck and get it done. Get my partner on the bottle. You kick and push everything and everybody out of the way, because that victim and that person's arm is the most important thing right now.
Yeah.
And I even say I don't care if the fire goes out at this point, unless, of course, you got to come back in, finish searching the house and all that. But the most important thing on the fire ground right now is that victim that we're trying to get out the door. There's a picture of Paul. He's got the black webbing. He pulled it out, and you can't really see, but his arms are locked. His hands are locked in. You can tell his hands aren't holding on to nothing. And that Lewis there is a pretty big fella. So
he's lacking a little bit in the mustache department, but
that's right. He's added on to it since.
Yeah, and here's another one with, I think Paul is the actual victim, but yeah, you can see with that red webbing, it shows a little bit better of how it's kind of looped around.
Yeah. So yeah, there you see pulled out, went around his opposite wrist.
Here's a good one, and this is I use the webbing. I've tried the DRD, but the one that I was using it with was actually a Lion Apparel, where it's the thicker webbing all the way across.
Without the loop?
Yeah, well, it's got the loop, but it's one long piece, and I actually like the Morning Pride.
Yes.
Because it's thinner and it seems to not be as bulky in my gear. When I actually looked it up, And I don't know if a lot of people know this, to get a new DRD or to order a DRD, I think it's like $50. It's super cheap.
Right.
You know, and
Picture of Ryan, the back of Ryan.
let me go back to that.
So yeah, like you said, one thing we found the advantage of the DRD is that it's probably wouldn't be as friendly. You know, if someone wants to nitpick, which everyone wants to do in the fire service, they could say webbing shouldn't be ran inside your gear. So okay, we have a DRD in there, so I'm just putting another one. It's all whatever NFPA rated to go with your gear. So we've gotten rid of a few of the naysayers by using that. But you can see the DRD in his left hand, and usually it would be split. What you just pointed out, that would be split into two loops, like the one that his DRD is still in place.
Yep.
So we just made it into one loop and ran it across. What we did find, a problem we found with the webbing, is that it would drape down across your back, and you go to put your coat on, and you'd feel that webbing catch, maybe down. I mean, pretty low on your back, when it needs to be up at your shoulder blades, and it would make your coat ride up. So we're having a problem with that, having to shake our coat around, get it up there. So some people may not like that, but I'm not worried about it. We ran the webbing or the DRD, whatever you're using for your victim drag strap. We ran it through the DRD. So that way, when you hook it over his right shoulder, the loop goes over his right shoulder, and then through the loop on the DRD. Now it won't drape across your back anymore. It'll stay where it's supposed to be, and it runs down his arm, and he's ready right now. All he has to do is put the outer shell on, and it's in place. It's ready to go. If it comes up a little too short, he can add the paracord and a monkey's fist to it and have it hanging off there. We haven't found it to ever get in the way of doing other work.
Yeah.
Like that. But these DRDs work perfect for it, because the end in his left hand is actually a webbing loop, a small webbing loop. That 1.5 or 2 inch webbing has a loop in it. So that way you're able to throw your wrist through there, your opposing wrist through there, and grab it.
Yeah. And I think, especially, and there's several different designs of DRDs, but, for us, that like the Lion Apparel one, it's basically this webbing the whole way through. And so we ran into the same issue where it was just so thick and it kind of bunched up, and every once in a while, I'm one of those guys where if I put on a pair of socks and they're uncomfortable, I'll go change. It's just, I don't like that feeling. And I always felt like that with the coat, to where it was just like bunched up. And so either with thinner, flatter webbing, or with this was a game changer for me when I tried the Morning Pride DRD, because it was just so easy. You barely notice it. It's not any more bulky than what you already have in your coat. And like you said, for the naysayers, well, if it's that bad, then let's take the one that's already in my coat out.
Right. Yep. So yeah, I did find out those DRDs come in different sizes too. Yep. So we're using it in a completely different application, but it's rated on a size to go around a fireman's chest based on the side of his coat. So if you get a bigger one, obviously you're going to have a longer one once you single strand it and hook it over your shoulder and bring it out. So if it's disappearing up in the sleeve, it's a pain to try to find it. You can get a longer one if you have access to it, or if you were going to buy one. I would go for a super long one and have extra length. And
then you can always shorten it up.
Yeah, you can always tie a knot in the other end of it and shorten it up where you need.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. And all this stuff is available on the KCFD Rescue 9 Facebook page. I know you guys individually, you and Paul have probably shared it, on your personal page, but a lot of this stuff, the great stuff that we get to see comes through on social media. So how else can people get a hold of you? How else can people send you a question, or if they want more information about this drag strap, how can they get a hold of you?
Oh, I'd say the easiest way is probably, if it's not email, through Facebook Messenger. That's probably the easiest way. And, if I'm going to have a conversation with someone, I'll just through Messenger, I'll give my phone number or whatever they want to do. So.
Perfect. I love it, man. Well, thanks for being with us. I can't thank you enough. I know we see each other, we talk to each other all the time, but it's nice to have you on this show and be able to pick your brain. I think we covered a lot of really cool stuff. There's definitely some neat things. So.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Well, guys, thanks again for sending the questions. Keep them coming because I can't make this stuff up. So I appreciate it. Until the next time we talk, take care, be safe, and we'll see you soon.
Peace.